What's up, Purist? It's Bob from Purist Motorsports. We get asked, and I say we, Mark and I would include other Saleen owners and enthusiasts who've been in the community a long time, a particular question a lot, which is this correct? Is this car original? What piece goes with this car? What's the correct shift knob? Is this the correct wing? Does this have this windshield banner? Are these graphics right for this car? So a lot of those questions we get asked at shows, I get asked text, email, online. While it's really tough to do one at a time every year to look at them in specific detail, what we're looking at in this video is an 87 Saleen that's original all the way down to the tires, and an 89 Saleen that's all original. The tires have been changed on it because it was driven a little more, but they're both 100% as delivered from Saleen. And it's good to take a look at those early aero cars, the 87 to 89s, because there are some subtle changes along the way, and it makes a big difference in value. I came up with this idea while we were on site filming because I thought, well, it would be good to look at these two cars, and it's a question we get asked a lot, and Mark obliged, and we put the cars side by side and we actually compare them. It's pretty neat. There are very subtle changes, and take a look at it, and feel free to ask questions. We may have not covered all of it in this, which is pretty hard to do because even underneath the hood, there are some details I feel like we missed. And to that, the 85, 86, the 4-ride cars, there's some changes in that. And then beyond the 89, there are changes there as well. So it's kind of tough. We may have to do a series of these, the 4-ride cars and the early aero cars, the late aero cars, and then maybe even the 94 to 04s with the 351s and the 281s and that kind of stuff. But anyways, this is about the 87 to 89, really taking a look at those cars specifically. So take a look. Let us know if you have any questions.
All right, guys, we're here with Mark again on the PAS collection. And what we've got is an 87 and an 89. They're similar, yet different.
Correct. One of the things that is a little bit sometimes hard to figure out what year the cars are, because people will change things on the car depending on their styling.
Yep.
And one of the things that you and I were talking about at dinner last night was that I wonder how many people really realize what window banners are correct for what cars.
Yeah.
And this particular script that says Saleen Mustang was on the original cars in 1984 on up until 1988. Mm-hmm. In 1989, they changed the script and went with the block letters. But you find a lot of people that prefer that, and they end up putting it on the earlier cars.
Yeah, a lot of people I know in the 90s would use that as a way to update their car, to
Correct.
take it from the 80s into the 90s look, or change wheels. They'd put speed lines on it.
Or what people would do when the cars first came out, they had the mesh wheels, and then as soon as these wheels came out mid to late 88, they first showed up on the actual production cars in 89, mm-hmm. But you could actually still, for $600, order the baskets if you wanted to. So people would a lot of times would put these wheels on these earlier cars, which I actually personally think they look better. Mm-hmm. The brakes cool better. The problem is that these wheels are getting super hard to find now, because really a lot of people took them off, they put them in the attic, they chucked them, and it's kind of interesting. You look back at the old muscle cars and what parts are hard to find, and these wheels are just like the air pumps for some of the cars they pulled off and threw away.
Yep, that's very true. The harder parts are typically what people chunked, like the H pipes with cats.
Right.
It's crazy what things were lying in dumpsters 30 years ago. People are now trying to
you kind of want to go out and dig in the landfill.
yeah, but a lot of people don't know that basket wheel was an option for 89.
Correct. Like I said, it was a $600 option.
Yeah.
The other thing is the early cars up until 88 had the Ford Motorsport stickers. And the 89 cars did not have the Ford Motorsport stickers.
Right.
The early cars had the 3-stripe graphics, and then the later cars had the 9-stripe. This is a unique car because it was graphics delete.
front bumper filler.
The front bumper filler was different. The early cars, it was a smooth piece, and then Saleen later basically copied this design of the body side molding to put it on the front of the car, which I think looks a lot nicer. It makes it look like that's possibly how the car was built.
Yes, I know that part of that was to get rid of the Mustang lettering underneath and to make it uniform across the front.
It was those little styling cues that Saleen did, and sometimes they were so subtle you didn't even realize it until you looked at a stock car and you were like, wow, that really does look a lot better.
Now, I know that the shift knobs, 88 maybe, I don't think 87.
You're thinking of the 88 ones that actually had blue on them that said Saleen Mustang.
Yeah, it's similar to what this logo
Correct.
is.
The other big difference with the 87 cars is the rear valence is different on the 87 car. It's a different valence than on any of the other cars. The other thing, the 87 cars had Coney shocks. These cars had Formula GPs. The 89 cars had cruise control. If you wanted cruise on one of these earlier cars, you had to do an aftermarket cruise control. They didn't have the bracket that went on the steering wheel.
Right, or you had to accept the factory forged steering wheel with cruise.
And there were a few cars they built that way. This particular car doesn't even have tilt. And I'm not sure how it made it through, but it doesn't have tilt. Because the first time I went to go drive this, I went underneath to grab the thing to tilt, and I'm like, it doesn't have tilt on it.
That's usually a base model 4-cylinder option, right? Like delete option.
What have you always said, you know?
Consistently inconsistent, right?
So this is a really, really neat car. This is only a few owner car. This car's completely original paint, and it was owned by an engineer. And it was really cool because I got a notebook with it that showed every time he drove the car, the starting miles, the ending miles, every time he filled it up, what the fuel mileage was. I mean, I'm anal retentive, but this was like way over.
He must have been in sales.
He
keep track of the mileage.
He was an engineer for one of the companies out in the Midwest, I want to say, like John Deere or something.
Yeah. Well, it really makes sense. I've got friends that are engineers with that's the way they are, even with their daily driver cars. They're keeping track of every mileage, when to fill up, how. And to that, they were actually calculating fuel mileage. But that's what they were working on as an engineer.
What's one of the things that we've talked about that's one of the most important things about a car? It's paperwork.
Yep.
And if you get documentation like this that shows the miles, shows when someone's driven the car, and you look at the car, there's no doubt what the miles are because there's different ways to look at it and go, okay, well, there's no wear on the brake pedal, there's no wear here, but then you have the log to go with it also. That can add a tremendous amount of value to a car when you actually have paperwork.
Yep.
Because you have to be able to substantiate it. Down the road, when you go to sell it to somebody else, I always say, better to buy a no questions asked car. And they come to look at the car, they come to look at it, and they're like, okay, wow, how much money do you want for it? And that's it. Yep. So always remember that when you go to try to purchase a car.
Something else to discuss, colors. See, a lot of people like, oh, they're similar, they're the same, but this proves they're quite different. Scarlet red and Cabernet red. This looks, next to this car, it almost looks purple.
That's a really, really dark color car, and it doesn't look that dark until you put it next to a car like this. And then this car looks completely different if you get it next to an earlier bright red car. Yeah. But if you remember, in '87, they had a problem with the red paint, the bright red paint, and then you couldn't order it. So this was the red. If you ordered the red, that was equal to the bright red.
And that, like the 85, 86 was jalapeno red.
Correct.
That was like almost orange in the sun. It was bright. It looked good. I had friends that had those cars.
But this car was the worst for fading.
Oh, this too.
It was the worst for delamination, and this car's an original paint car too.
They oxidize so bad. They'll get powdery if they sit outside, and it turns almost pink. This turns faded pink. So to have them in original condition like this, in this kind of condition, is pretty amazing. The interiors, though, that's something else that there's not a whole lot of difference in the interiors. No. Other than cruise control, like you talked about, 89, they had the little buttons they could add behind the steering wheel. It was actually a bracket that went behind the steering wheel. But the flow-fit seats stayed through 91. Now they changed in 90, but as far as 87 to 89,
they're basically the same. The only other difference was the sound system. The 85s and 86s came with a Kenwood system, and then Pioneer came in 1988 on up.
Yep. Okay. So there would be a Kenwood in this.
It would have been a Kenwood, and that also had a graphic equalizer too that had an amplifier built into it.
Okay.
And all that stuff is getting super hard to find because first thing people did is pull the stereo out and put an even better stereo in it.
Yeah, that seems to be the more difficult pieces to find are the ones that Saleen pulled off the shelf. Shift knobs, like the standard 5-speed pattern shift knob, is just really an AMCO shift knob that you could, at the time, buy pretty much at any parts, almost any parts store.
Correct. They're out there, but they still bring a few $100s.
Yeah, but it's those common items like the stereos and things that would end up you just can't find a specific
Actually,
stereo.
the speaker grills are one of the craziest things trying to find a set of speaker grills. I was at a car loss swap meet and found a set, and I gave a guy $100 for a set of speaker grills. And the guy that was with me is like, "Are you insane? Those don't even look perfect." And I'm like, "Yeah, but they'll look great in the back of the car."
Yeah, they put Kenwood speakers in the 86s, right? In the very back.
85, 86, and 87.
Yeah, with the 87s, they used factory grill covers with Kenwood speakers.
Correct.
The 86s had they changed it all out. They're the black Kenwood.
Correct.
Yeah, those you get banged up and messed up.
Oh yeah,
from all,
those are the ones that really need. These actually use the factory locations, like you said.
Yeah,
so it wasn't actually a grill on it. It was for an earlier car that we were trying to help somebody put back together again.
Which is key, finding that stuff. And that's where you find that kind of stuff. You end up going to a swap meet. Heck, what was it that a friend of mine went to a flea market and he came across a drove of Pioneer stereos and speakers and grill covers and all kinds of stuff. That
Never know.
Yep, you never know.
Never know.
It's pretty cool to see these two cars together because of the color. Some people have said it's the same, and it's not.
Well, that's why when you said something the other night about, hey, why don't we do a comparison? I had never really thought about it, but it makes a lot of sense to look at the cars, especially with the correct bits and pieces. And this car being so unique, being a graphics delete car.
Yeah, it's really cool. The rear air dams are different. 87, 88, 89. They have each year is different. 88's a little different.
Correct, but 87 was the one that you really looked at it and it looked completely different from the outside because the way that it went to the gas tank and scooped up and it had the vents in the back.
Yep.
And the other thing is that the wings were basically the same wing.
Yeah.
So there really isn't any difference in the wings. The later cars, 92, 93, it was made out of a different material. It was a little bit lighter.
There are minor differences, and we're really looking at the 87 to 89s in this that we're talking about. There are differences even up 90, 91.
Correct.
And also to that, there are some things that will happen. There are carryover pieces. An early 88 car could very well have an 87 rear air dam.
Correct, or the graphics. So we've seen 89 cars, early 89 cars that had 88, graphics.
So there's a carryover of stuff. So it really is important, and we've said it before, and we'll continue to say it. Documentation, pictures, early
build sheets.
Yeah, early owners that you can get in touch with to document the car came this way. But just because it is incorrect doesn't mean it is incorrect. It's, as I keep saying, consistently inconsistent. And you have to watch over that because originality is key. That's where all of these cars are going to grow in value. Original. How did it come? How did it get built? That's what matters.
The other thing too is if you're watching this and you've got any questions, feel free to reach out to either Bob and I. We're happy to answer the questions. We have a lot of the build information on these cars, so we might be able to cut to the chase and say, yep, nope, the car was done this way, and then help you. So we're more than happy to do that. We'd rather see cars get put back together again the right way or purchased the right way than someone buying something and not knowing what they're buying.
Yeah, and if you need to reach out to Mark, you can go to performanceautosport.com, email him. He'll get back to you in time as we've been doing this.
Depending on how busy you have me, I might take a little bit of time, but yes, I will eventually get back to you.
I don't know. It's as many emails as you said you've had to deal with in the last 48 hours.
It's all fun.
Ooh, man.
The other thing that I want to point out too is that the basket wheels had a taller center cap and the 5-spokes had a shorter center cap. They interchange, but that is the correct cap for that wheel. That is the correct cap for that wheel.
Yeah, and to add in, Saleen Mustang logo versus the S9 Stripe S logo.
Correct.
Because this is where things started to change. This is the logo I think more people are familiar with because it's been on the cars since '89. And that's what they've used throughout even today. So this is what's familiar, but this is what's correct from the 88 and older cars.
This car's also actually got the original tires, which is a General XP2000V. This car's got a replacement set of tires. It would have been the General XP2000Z, being an 89 car.
Okay, all right, I didn't know that. That's very cool. Yep. One thing I wish just saying it would be cool to do is the 9-stripe.
What, burnout contest?
Ooh.
No.
What?
But that means you got to get them all out, and then I got to wash them again.
Again? Well, I mean, you're going to have to wash them again at some point.
You were saying I interrupted you.
No, I was just saying, I like the 9-stripe, but I've always thought, what if you did a 9-stripe out of the 3-stripe, where it does the color change? Because it's a different color, dark to light. Anyways, it's just saying, but I'm digressing here. Mark, thanks for having us here with this. It's great to see two original cars together, paint these pieces. Stripe delete, that's a unique one as well. Sometimes they say ship in the trunk, don't they?
Well, it had stripes on it when I bought it from a friend of mine. This is a car that's actually been owned by a couple of friends of ours within the Saleen community, and it had the wrong color stripes on it. And I peeled the stripes off on my trailer before I would even take it on the highway because I was embarrassed that it was the wrong color. Yeah. That's how anal I am. Yes. And the gentleman I got this car from about 4 or 5 years ago, we were laughing about that the other day because I do talk to him, and he goes, "Do you remember sitting in my parking lot and peeling those stripes off before you would leave and come home?" And it was from Delaware to Richmond, so it was a 4 or 5 hour ride. But those are the insanity things that I deal with every day. It's okay.
Yeah, you need help.
I do. I need lots of help. You know, Bob, the one thing that we forgot to talk about is the differences in the drivetrain.
Yep.
And the biggest difference is these early cars were what was called speed density, and then mass air is what everything is today.
Yep.
And the most interesting thing about it is everybody wants to immediately convert their car to mass air. Well, if you leave your car stock, in all reality, a speed density car runs better.
It's faster.
It's faster. It has instantaneous throttle response because it doesn't need to do the calibrations from the air coming in. It's already on a set table. Stoplight to stoplight, seat of the pants at least, a speed density car feels faster.
I agree.
And what did we say in one of the earlier videos? All the Saleen race cars were speed density, even after mass air was introduced, because the car would respond quicker. Yep. And that's the biggest difference. Now, if you're going to modify the car and you're going to put heads, cam, or intake, you obviously need to go with mass air because the car's not going to run properly with speed density.
Yeah, that's the most reasons people, cams, heads, intakes. Actually, on a speed density car, you can change, as long as you don't change the cam, and you don't get too big with the heads, you can do a few mods and it not affect drivability. We
need to be careful and make sure it doesn't lean out. That's the main thing.
Yep.
And what a lot of guys will do is put a bigger injector in it, and it'll make up for.
Well, at that point you really need mass air to help manage that new injector, because you get into where you can add too much fuel.
So always check it on the dyno.
Yes, which is what we've done recently.
Yes.
So that's right. But as far as mechanically, the motors in the cars remained pretty much unchanged. I will say that from the 87 all the way through up, I know 88 and into 89, they did change the ramp rates on cams and stuff because of complaints from customers saying it was too, they could hear the lift, or the roller, or not roller rockers, why did I say roller rockers? They could hear the rockers clicking and that kind of stuff. But pretty much it's the same intake to oil pan in both of these cars. It's just the engine management system's a little different. The computers cannot be swapped.
No,
we can't do that. So
there's a whole separate harness, for this car and everything else. It's just there's very few of these cars left out there that are still mass air because people all felt like, oh, I need to convert the car.
Well, and speed density.
I'm sorry, speed density and convert it to mass air.
Yeah,
correct.
Yeah. They're pretty much the same. And I want to say between 87 and 88, if you're looking at a Saleen on the front, really the only way to tell difference is to go around the back and look at the air dam on 87, 88.
Well, the other thing that some people get confused with too is that mass air was introduced in 88 in California.
Right.
And if you bought a Saleen Mustang, a lot of times it would be mass air being in 88. because if it was ordered and came through California, then it was automatically a mass air car.
Well, that brings about a question I have, and I think that's been in the community a little. Well, Saleen had its own DSO in '88.
Correct.
So if they ordered a car, would it have been mass air?
Yes.
Being sent to them?
Correct.
Okay. All right. I
Correct.
thought so.
It would if it originated in California and was built by Saleen, then it was in turn a mass air car. Now, if you had a dealership and you wanted Saleen and you gave your order to Saleen and Saleen was able to order and custom order your car and it came directly to Saleen, then it would be a mass air car too.
Okay.
So the early cars were, speed density cars because they were cars that either dealers sent to Saleen or they were drop shipped early from Ford to Saleen to be converted.
Okay. So an '88 would be a mixture of both.
Correct. It is a mixture of both because people come all the time and say, well, how can it be an '88? It has mass air.
Well, the connector's different on the '88s. It's a square plug versus the oval. Correct. From '89 on, it's unique. California only, like the cars, kind of like the million-mile odometers in '93 for the state of New York. If a car in '93 was bought and delivered to the state of New York, their law required to have a million-mile odometer in it. So there's some unique stuff in there with these cars. It's pretty fun. That's kind of what makes these things real neat.
Definitely.
But yeah, thank you. And that's good information on that. As far as the rest of the drivetrain, though, the same options. You could get gear sets put in the cars, 355s, 327s. The transmissions were also the same, 5-speed or automatic from Ford.
Yeah, you could get an auto in the cars, and people don't realize that. Now, Saleen would recommend an auto, and typically, if you find an automatic Saleen, it was custom ordered by the person that wanted the car.
Okay.
Because the dealer would not want to put that on their lot with an automatic in it with fear that they wouldn't be able to sell it.
Makes sense.
And the same thing with colors. Usually, Saleen stuck to recommended colors that you would order for the cars, and occasionally you'll get one that's maybe a different color, like the color of the coupe that we had, the dove gray color.
Yeah.
But typically it's because the dealer specifically ordered it that way.
Yeah, that makes
sense. The Saleen rep is like, are you sure you want this car? Because I don't want you calling me in 6 months and tell me you can't move the car and we need to help you with the car.
Yeah. I do know that on the order sheet, Saleen had standard colors, and then they didn't do the whole book of colors that Mustangs came with. They had optional colors. Now, that doesn't mean, I think, if you had enough money and influence, you could get what you wanted, but on the order sheets that I have seen, Saleen had standard colors, which is typically black, red, white, and then the other colors, there were a few that they offered.
Correct.
But yeah, those are neat things. The automatic is definitely something you don't see very often, but there's
more in the convertibles than in the hardtops,
Yeah,
obviously.
that makes sense.
But it's a rare but not unusual option, the automatic.
Cool. Awesome. I can edit this in. All done. Thanks for letting us be here with all of this. And guys, if you get, like he said, if you have questions, comment below, things that come up, things you have questions about, we'll do our best to address them. Contact Mark. You go to performanceautosport.com. Don't forget to go to puristmotorsports.com. You can sign up for the email. You can reach out that way. If you can't get in touch with Mark, I'll be glad to help. I'll do whatever I can to pass along information or give you any advice that you might need to help a purchase or finding original pieces and parts to get your project on the road. So thanks so much for watching. Mark, thanks so much for having us here at the bunker, as you call it. Really appreciate you letting us be a part of this. How can people find you?
Probably the easiest is through Facebook. I do monitor that a little bit quicker than the website. We also have a website at performanceautosport.com. But feel free to reach out, try to return messages as quickly as possible. But as you can imagine, after doing these videos, we're getting a few.
Yeah.
Definitely. But we're happy to help. If you need any help with consultation with a collection you have, 1 or 2 cars you have, help with an insurance company, we're there. We also offer appraisals, and we're always looking to buy cars. So if you have anything that's for sale that you think might be looking good on one of these racks in here, feel free to reach out.
Thanks so much for having us here, man. Reach out to Mark. Be sure to go to puristmotorsports.com. There's some content there. We're trying to get a lot more there. That's why we're working with Mark. We want to bring information to you all of stories,
There's a couple of stories of cars that have been rescued. One's particular is a Saleen. The other one is a full-on, dead-on, accurate clone. You got to check it out. So go to puristmotorsports.com and make sure you subscribe.
Also, if you want us to come out and look at your collection or help, reach out to Bob, because we're more than happy to come out and feature your collection or your group of cars.
Yeah, it'd be fun. That would be a great time. Thanks, Mark. As always, whether you're driving them or restoring them, always enjoy them. Peace.